So for everybody listening to this podcast, I'm sure you guys have watched a bunch of content already on this. You've watched pods, you've listened to pods or whatnot, but figured we jump on and try to maybe give you a different side of things. We're going to break this trade down, not just from the on-court perspective, but from the financial perspective and looking at some of the draft picks that were moved, the draft capital. We have some pages on our site that I want to share with you guys. So what I'm going to do now is actually share my screen, and we're going to get into some of the money that was moved in this deal here. So let me get this set up here just so we can kind of take a look at what I'm talking about. I will share my screen. We're going to go to this window here and share. So, all right. Can you see that all right, Corbin?
I'm looking at it perfectly, yes.
Awesome. Cool. So, yeah, guys, this is where we're going to start our podcast. We're going to talk about the financials of this deal. As you can see on the screen that I'm sharing with you guys, this is the Lakers cap sheet, and you can see that Luka Doncic is now incorporated into their cap sheet. So, first and foremost, Corbin, we got to talk about the fact that Luka is actually missing out on some money because of this trade. Players that are drafted by a certain team, they play with that team. They're not traded. They play all the way through. They hit certain achievements like All NBA or MVP. We know Luka hasn't hit MVP yet, but he has hit All NBA several times in his young career. So that made him eligible for a designated veteran supermax extension that was going to be worth about $345 million over 5 years. So now that he is traded, he is ineligible for that because he's no longer with the team that drafted him. That's a shame. But he's still going to be able to make about $229 million over 4 years with his extension that he presumably will sign with the Lakers. So it's not like he's going to be poor because of this or anything like that. But, it does miss out on some money. So I wanted to kind of make that clear. So we can see with the Lakers now that Luka is next to LeBron. They're both making 40+ million. That's a whole lot of money on the cap sheet that is going to be allocated to 2 players. And as we go down here, we can look at the space they're working with. So here at the second apron space, they're at about 1.6 million. That's notable because they can't go over the second apron. If you do certain transactions, like you aggregate salaries, you pull them together, you use your mid-level exception, things like that, then your hard cap. So that kind of brings in a hard cap they have here at the second apron. So they cannot exceed that total for whatever reason. So they're about $187 million total for the team salary. And obviously they're over the tax and over the first apron because they make a lot of players, some of their players make a lot of money. So looking at this here, Corbin, there's a lot of money thrown in here. There's various contracts and everything like that. I guess the other thing I want to point out is that, Luka has this player option in a couple years. Yeah. That kind of, brings in a different element to everything. And I guess that was one of the reasons why the Mavs wanted to move on from him. They weren't sure if they wanted to pay him that and deal with that, which still is crazy to me because, he's one of the best players in the league, man. So I want to give you the floor here real quick and see if you have any thoughts on this, the Supermax, the Mavs not paying Luka, the Lakers paying Luka here. What are your first thoughts when you think about how this trade went down specifically for the Lakers?
You can't help but love it for the Lakers in terms of their future, right? Financially, I see a lot of contracts that won't factor in heavily in 2 years. A lot of medium tier contracts that, for the most part, will probably be descending in 2 years' time. I doubt, if Rui Hachimura is still, that's if he's not moved to the trade deadline, that contract will really be a huge thing, if not this year, by the next year, right? Dorian Finney-Smith is on a good one. Austin Reeves, obviously, one of the great value contracts in the league relative to the way he plays, right? Even like a Gabe Vincent or Maxi Kleber, like both those guys, in 2 years' time, like you kind of have an open book, outside of your centerpiece, Luka Doncic, and then, LeBron James. And by that point, if he's not gone, he probably will have his contract restructured again. But the point being, you have a pretty good cap sheet in terms of, some contributors that make enough that if we want to make a trade, we have some decent salary at a good price point to send out, while also not being attached for too many years, and not having a lot of crazy player options. The only ones who have player options are 2 of your important players as of right now in Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. So really like I mean, LeBron James has one too, but that's for a year earlier.
Right.
But I just like the balance on this. And I also really think that the contracts here are both decently sized, but also easily moved. And, you have enough time for them to phase out while you bring in, the possible new role players, draft picks, all of that that's going to fit in around the new Luka Doncic core.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are all good points, man. I'm with you there. I'm glad you brought up the medium-sized contracts because especially in today's NBA, it's really important that you have contracts like that you can move if you want to go and get a big fish or whatever. So, I mean, they have a lot of those here. I mean, you all the way from Finney Smith down to Vanderbilt, even Connect. I mean, these aren't bad values whatsoever. And they're very fair contract values, and none of them are for too many years, like two years max left on these contracts here. So that's definitely notable here for the Lakers. And then, looking at next year, it's not like they're going to have a ton of space. But if they wanted to, they can, be flexible and move some guys around. It kind of depends on what direction they want to go in. I think that's like the main point. One of the things I've been thinking about here the past couple of days is like, where do the Lakers go from here? Because you have LeBron and Luka, and on paper, you're like, man, that's a win now team, no doubt. But Luka's still very young. He's just about to turn 26 years old, and you have some young guys. You have a Connect here that you can build around, and Austin Reeves, a few younger players. So it just kind of makes you wonder what they're trying to do here, or do you just want to kind of double down, spend that 2031 pick that they did not send out in this trade, and try to kind of get more talent and guys that can help now? It's just kind of interesting, like what direction they want to go. So, going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how LeBron approaches this player option. Does he accept it? Does he decline and then do a smaller value for 25, 26 and 26, 27 to wrap up his career? Something like that is possible. Finney Smith could do something similar. He could decline this and then maybe try to get 2 more years at a lower value. Players do that a lot to get the security over a few years. So a lot to think about for the Lakers for sure.